Hey there, happy Friday. Welcome to Friday Business Building on SRT Live with me, your host, Sean Richard, here on the Sean Richard Mortgage team at Guaranteed Rate. Thanks so much for joining me today. And I'm excited about our content today. I'm excited to bring you some amazing new tech that some of you have may already heard of, and there's some other companies that are doing similar activity. But I've created a partnership with a new unique partner that's giving buyers a whole new perspective on being able to have success in this market. So I want to say thank you for joining me. And if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them down below. I'm going to pull this up in the Facebook group, and I'm going to be trying to keep an eye on the comments so that way I can answer questions as we go through this. So let me finish pulling that up. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to dive in and we can get started. I got a bunch of stuff popping. There we go. All right. So let me go ahead and pull this up. Let me see. Ta-da. All right. So winning in a hyper-competitive market. So I'm sure that several of you, if not all of you, would agree that we are in an extremely hyper-competitive market. There's not really any exceptions to where in the DFW Metroplex, or really where in Texas, that we're not seeing hyper-competitiveness. Here in DFW, Austin is extremely hot. San Antonio, Houston. I'm seeing, we're seeing multiple offer scenarios in, rural city Texas as well. And so my goal as a loan officer is to always try and bring you new tools to be successful and to help your clients, whether it's seller tools, whether it's buyer tools. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is winning in a hyper-competitive market, how to turn your clients into cash buyers. And so let's dive into this. All right. So what's the challenge? What are we facing? Here in DFW, we've got a number of different challenges in front of us. Number one is inventory. And we've got such a massive shortage of inventory. It's happening in new homes, it's happening in existing homes, it's happening across the board. And so we've got to combat that somehow. And the way that we do that for our buyers is we look for new ways to get them into homes to take advantage of opportunities when a home does come up for them. So what are the issues that we're seeing in inventory? Let me break it down. And if you've watched some of my market update videos, you've heard me talk about this before. On the new home side, we've got builders that are not able nor willing to put up the amount of homes that they need to keep up with inventory. And so what does that mean? So twofold. So builders are struggling to put up the number of homes that they need to, because of supply chain issues, because of labor shortages. They just can't get the materials fast enough to put up homes as fast as they normally would in a more traditional market, in a normal environment. I had a client I was talking to yesterday. He's like, hey, is it okay if we close without shower glass? Because the builder doesn't know when they're going to get it. And that's a common conversation. And so I'm sure you're having similar conversations with your clients, with builders. And so they just can't build homes fast enough. The second component of new home inventory is the builders, they don't want to build homes fast enough. Put yourself in the builder's shoes. If you're a builder and you don't know when you're going to get material, you don't know how much that material is going to cost you when you can get a hold of it, that makes your cost to put up that home much more volatile than it might otherwise be. And so if you build more homes at one time, you're exposing yourself to more risk. What if your price changes on a specific material, brick or windows? And that's going to make it challenging for you to control your costs. So as a builder, what do? You build fewer homes, so that way you have more control over your costs. And so that is the two main reasons we're seeing new construction go at a slow pace. Normally, we want to see about 1.7, 1.8 million homes go up every year across the country. Last year, we finished between 1.2 and 1.3 million. Existing homes, we're seeing shortage of that as well. And we've got home owners that they're worried about this market. They're timid, like, where am I going to go? And so maybe they're less likely to list their home because they're not sure how easy it will be to find something. Today's going to help fix that as well. And then we've got demand. That's obviously a challenge in our market. We've got a spike in demand. We've got the millennial generation, the largest generation in our country's history, is now at that age where they're settling down, they're buying homes. And so we've got this influx of home buyers. We've got migration coming from other areas of the country. Texas is a hotspot. We've got a lot of companies that are moving to Texas from out of state. Californians are coming to Texas. So we've got a lot of migration coming to the DFW and Texas as a whole. That's really putting some pressure on demand as well. And then the ever classic FOMO. There's plenty of homeowners, home buyers out there that they're worried that if they don't buy right now, they're going to get to a point where they are completely priced out of the market. And there's some truth to that. And so FOMO is a big reason why there's demand as well, because we've got some people that are just wanting to not miss out on making sure that they can get a home. And then lastly, the challenge that we face, and this is across the entire board, is inflation. Home prices are rising, interest rates are rising, gas is rising, groceries are rising, everything is on the rise. And so that's putting a lot of pressure on pricing, right? You just heard me say it. A lot of buyers are thinking that they could end up being priced out of the market, or maybe they already feel like they've been priced out of the market because everything is going up. And we're going to continue to see that for at least the short term. Inflation, the most recent inflation report that we got, which was in March for the month of February, showed that inflation year over year was up 8.4%, which was 40-year highs. I'm sorry, 7.9%, 40-year highs. How was for February? That report, of course, didn't take into consideration all of the increase in energy costs that we saw at the beginning of March from stemming primarily from the Ukraine conflict. So April's report for the month of March is going to give us even more clarity into where inflation is. And I think we're going to see a rise in inflation on that report. Now, the hope is that that's our peak, is that inflation is now peaking and starting to come down. The Fed increased the Fed funds rate by 0.25%, which is designed to help combat inflation. And so hopefully this April report that we get over the next several weeks is going to be a peak, and we can start coming down from there. So everything is up. All right. So let's talk about the good news, because that was a lot of bad news. So let's talk about some good news now. So we're in a challenging market. We're in a hyper-competitive, super challenging market. What's good news about that, right? So as you can see, what I put here, for one, as real estate agents, a very challenging market weeds out the bad apples. It weeds out the bad real estate agents. Stellar agents, star agents, they thrive in these markets because they're looking for new ways to assist clients. They're able to think outside of the box. They're able to be creative to be able to accomplish clients' goals for them. The agents that are, I call them spaghetti agents, because they like to just throw offers against the wall and maybe someone will stick. So spaghetti agents in these types of markets, they last for a little bit and then they end up with a W-2 job. And so that's some great news, and it's an opportunity to capture more market share as a really top agent. The second thing that's good about this market is it limits the number of tire kickers. You heard, earlier I mentioned that there's a lot of people that feel like they're priced out of the market or they're nervous about the market. And so those people are less, people who are not serious about buying or selling are less likely to venture into this market. They're less likely to dip their toe in the water. And so it does eliminate a lot of the tire kickers. And that's going to make the buyers and sellers that you do work with higher opportunity to help and get them closed because they're more serious. So a couple of good points about the market. All right. So how do you help your buyers in this hyper-competitive market? Obviously the subject, the theme of this call, this training, is turning your buyers into cash buyers. And so we're definitely going to get into that. But two immediate ways that you can help your buyers in this market. Number one is working with the right lending partner. It's important that your lending partner is doing just as much to help buyers set buyers apart from other people bidding on the same house as you are. You know, as agents, you're going in and you're looking at every aspect of the contract. You're talking to the listing agent to try and gather and glean some information that, you know, what the seller wants to try and accommodate that in the contract, whether it's a lease back, whether it's a shorter close, whether it's more earnest money, whether it's something, you know, very specific to the seller. You know, you're doing everything in your power to gather information, to leverage your knowledge, leverage your expertise to present the best possible position for your clients. And so it's very important for your lending partner to be doing the exact same thing. As lenders, historically, we're like, here's a client, Mr. Realtor, Miss Realtor. And then you go out, you find them a home, they go under contract, and you send the contract to the lender, and then the lender gets started on working on the loan. In this market, that's not enough. It's not good enough. And so having the right lending partner is going to be important. And I'll elaborate on that just a bit in a minute. And then the second way, the reason we are here today is to talk about turning your buyers into cash buyers. Right now in this market, although cash buyers can be a little bit fickle, right? The whims of cash buyers, financing buyers that are competing with cash buyers tend to be at a disadvantage. In the eyes of a lot of agents, both listing and buying, cash is key, cash is king, cash is safer. And so being able to turn your buyers, your financing buyers, into cash buyers is one of the ways that you can help set them apart and help them win the properties that they're after. And so let's talk about the first way real quick. I've only got one slide on this, so no worries. So what your lender should be doing. And so I talked about the next evolution of a loan officer is not just, oh, thanks for the contract, let's get the loan done, we closed on time, yay. That should be the absolute bare minimum. And so the next evolution of a loan officer is working as a true partner to help you succeed in your business as a real estate agent. And part of that means helping clients get offers accepted. And so I have a few graphics here that I'll kind of talk a little bit about. So number one, hype. If your lender is not reaching out and hyping up your client to the buyer or to the listing agent, to the seller, then they've already come down. They've already lost a little bit. If they're not calling, at the very least, calling the listing agent to have a conversation, to talk up the approval and gather a little bit more information and really give some peace of mind to the listing agent, then that's also a pitfall. They need to be doing video. Video is so important in this market right now. Video is critical in our industry. And so your loan officer, your lender partner should be doing video. They should be sending videos to your clients. They should be sending videos to the listing agent. They need to be putting content out there that's going to help your clients stand out. In a sea of clients, you want to make sure that your client has their hand raised so that way they can be spotted easily and quickly. All right, let me pause real quick. Let me see if I get any comments in the Facebook group. So it looks like right now we are, nope, I thought I saw a comment, but looks like it was not the case. No worries. So next, texting. This is pretty simple. I mean, obviously we're using all communication methods and texting is no different. Your lending partners should be texting the listing agent. They should be sending unique and memorable content via text to the listing agent, to the seller if they can get a hold of the seller's information. And then lastly here, your lending partner should be helping devise new ideas and ways and resources to be successful in any market. And this market is a prime example of that. So having a lending partner that does all of these things every single time with your clients is critical, especially in a market like this. All right, so let's get into the second way that we're going to help set buyers apart. And this is really what you're all here for. All right, so man, this guy is not having a good month. He has submitted 16 offers, and he has been rejected 16 times. And so he is looking for a new way to have success in his home buying. He's a working class guy, has a pre-approval, looking to buy a home, really excited, wants to start a family, and is struggling to have a good experience in his home buying process because he can't get an offer accepted. And so I'd like everyone to meet Ribbon. Now, if you're familiar with Ribbon or a company like Ribbon, then that's fantastic. I've actually done a lot of due diligence on Ribbon personally. I've had several conversations with Ribbon staff, and I've vetted them out. Ribbon is backed by Goldman Sachs, so they've got a strong financial backer, and they are an incredible partner, a unique partner to help in this type of market. And so Ribbon provides, everyday buyers like our buyer here the opportunity to compete with cash buyers, with investors, with corporations, because corporations are swooping in and scooping up properties as well. And so they also empower real estate agents to have more success in challenging markets like the one we're in. So let's talk about what Ribbon offers that makes it so great and how you can set your clients apart. So let me pull up. All right, so here's their program offerings. They've got 4 program offerings. We're going to dive pretty deep into the first 2 and then probably the 4th one. The 3rd one we'll talk about. It's less utilized. And so they have Ribbon Reserve. And here I am forgetting to update or delete some of the generic slide content. Well, you can laugh at me. I'll laugh at myself. Gosh, that's how embarrassing, but it's okay. So they've got Ribbon Reserve, Ribbon Boost, Ribbon Rescue, and Ribbon Catch Plus. And so those are the 4 programs that they offer. And we're going to go into detail on each one of them. So let me jump into Ribbon Reserve. So what is Ribbon Reserve? So Ribbon Reserve, as you can see from the photo there, it's not reserve like a fine wine, like the reserve vintage. Think of it like reserving a table. So Ribbon Reserve basically gives buyers the ability to have Ribbon purchase the home as a cash buyer, and they're positioned as a guaranteed backup, essentially. So in the event that the buyer's financing can't close in time or can't close when the seller wants them to close, or maybe the financing falls through during the process, or they just need more time, something came up, Ribbon comes in and they're a guaranteed cash offer backup, and they come in and they purchase the home. Once they've purchased the home, they lease the property back to the buyer, who then has the ability to purchase the home for the exact same sales price as the original contract. Now, the original contract is actually written with your buyer as the buyer of record on the contract. And then Ribbon has an addendum that puts them as a guaranteed backup or an assign. So the buyer has the ability to purchase the home within 180 days. Ribbon will rent or lease the home back to them for up to 180 days. And again, they'll sell it to them at the original contract price. There is a cost for this program. At the time of contract execution, the buyer would deposit 2% with the title company, essentially like as earnest money. And that 2%, if Ribbon has to buy the home, that 2% is Ribbon's fee for providing their services. So that's Ribbon Reserve. Ribbon buys the home, leases it back to the buyer, and then the buyer can purchase the property from Ribbon at the original contract price. All right, so what's the difference with Ribbon Boost? So Ribbon Boost allows the buyer to purchase a home and close with their financing, and Ribbon, similar to Ribbon Reserve, Ribbon Boost puts Ribbon as a guaranteed cash backup to close if something happens, if financing falls through, again, if there's a delay. So this is the preferred program for Ribbon. Ribbon is not out to scoop up and buy every home. It's not their ideal process, but they do have Ribbon Reserve for those clients that need that. Ribbon Boost is designed for the clients that really just need that extra separation in actually winning the home. And then they've got a great lending team to be able to close by the expected due date. And that way Ribbon doesn't have to swoop in and buy the home. Now, in this particular instance, the buyer still has to put up that same 2% deposit, because in the event that Ribbon has to buy the home, then they're going to charge that 2% fee. That's going to go to Ribbon. However, if the buyer closes with their financing, then 1% of that 2% fee is credited back to the buyer at closing. And so it's a 1% process. I did forget to mention, let me go back and reference this real quick on Ribbon Reserve. So the primary scenario where Ribbon Reserve is phenomenal is when you've got a buyer that's contingent, because then Ribbon will come in, they'll buy the home cash, rent it to your buyer while they're working on selling their home. So that way they can have a smooth, simple, easy transition from their current home to the new home. And then they'll simply purchase the property from Ribbon at the original contract price once their home has sold. So it's a great tool to leverage when you've got contingent buyers, to remove that contingency and turn your buyer into a cash buyer. The Ribbon Boost is really designed for those buyers who don't have a contingency. They are maybe they're renting, or maybe they own a home but they don't need the proceeds, or their debt to income ratio can support two housing payments. And so this program allows them to go in and still close with their financing, save a little bit of money on that fee, and then transition smoothly to the new home with that guaranteed backup. This is really the program for just really that separation on making an offer, coming in as a cash offer to compete with those cash offers. All right, Ribbon Rescue. So Ribbon Rescue is a program where your buyer is already under contract. So haven't used Ribbon, haven't done anything with Ribbon yet, but they are already under contract. And for some reason, the financing falls through. And Ribbon is needed to come in, buy the home cash, and save the deal. And so there are a few hard stops for Ribbon. Not every scenario is going to fit this criteria. If there's more than 90 days needed to be able to close, that's a hard stop for Ribbon. If the buyer is going through a divorce, that is a hard stop. They will not take on that scenario. If the reason the financing fell through was a decline in credit, they will not take that on. If there's a bankruptcy or a tax lien, Ribbon's going to stay away from those. And so those are some pretty significant financial items. So anything outside of that, Ribbon's likely going to be able to come in and look at saving the deal. Now, if they've got to turn that deal around that fast, come in and save it, they do have a little bit higher cost. There's a 3% fee deposited with title that Ribbon gets upon the closing of the transaction. Again, what they'll do is they'll come and buy it, they'll rent it back to the buyer until they, up to 180 days, until they have the ability to go ahead and turn around and buy the home at the original contract price. So they still get it at that original contract price, even if it's 1, 2, 3, 4 months down the road, they're still getting it at that original contract price. So one of the really cool aspects of this is, in the event that your buyer's got to rent the home from Ribbon, they're building equity. They're increasing the home is appreciating while they're working to buy the home. So they're not losing out on that potential equity that they would have gotten if they had bought initially. Really, really cool concept there. And so that's Ribbon Rescue. And then we've got Ribbon Cash Plus. Now, Ribbon Cash Plus is an add-on to the other programs, and it's really an add-on to the first two, Reserve and Boost. So what Cash Plus is it gives the buyer the opportunity to protect against an appraisal shortage, an appraisal gap, which we know those are happening with buyers going over list price by such significant margins. We are seeing appraisal gaps across the industry, across the market. And so this gives buyers the ability to protect against that. Now, this is one, at first glance, I thought, like, wow, this is expensive. And once I really understood this part of the program, it made a ton of sense. And so here's what Ribbon Cash Plus does. Ribbon, and I'll get into kind of the inner workings of some other things, but Ribbon offers a Ribbon value and a Ribbon max value. And so for every $1,000 that the buyer offers on a property over the Ribbon value, then they can leverage this Ribbon Cash Plus program, and they can deposit $250 for every 1,000. So let me give you an example. We've got a Ribbon value of 300, and we've got a Ribbon max value of 310. And the buyer says, well, I want to offer the full 310. And so you've got a $10,000 difference between that. The buyer can deposit $250 for every 1,000. So in this scenario, they're depositing $2,500 with the title, okay? And what this does is this protects against an appraisal shortage. If the appraisal comes in short, Ribbon will cover the appraisal gap. And so essentially what that means is instead of the buyer having to come up with 100% of that appraisal gap, they're only having to come up with 25% of it. In our example, they deposited $2,500. Let's say that the appraisal came in at $300. So we've got a $10,000 gap. Well, the $2,500 that the buyer deposited goes towards closing that gap. And then Ribbon takes care of the other $7,500 because that's the guaranteed it up to that max value. And so huge win for clients. Instead of having to worry about, oh, there's going to be a $30,000 gap, now they're looking at only 25% of that having to cover that. Now, you may ask, what happens if the appraisal comes in at the contract price? Then the deposit that the buyer gave for the Ribbon Cash Plus guarantee gets credited towards their money due at closing. So it becomes really almost like earnest money at that point. So really, really cool aspect to the program to allow buyers to be able to cover appraisal gaps at a fraction of the expense of the out-of-pocket cost that normally comes with that. All right, let me pause for just a moment and let me check the Facebook group, see if we have any questions just yet. So no questions just yet. Feel free to comment if you have any. Leave comments down below, and I'll make sure that I try to address those. Yeah, ask any questions you want. Make comments. I'm going to be checking the stream in the Facebook group kind of as we go through. All right. So we talked about Ribbon Cash Plus. All right. So let's get a little bit deeper. Let's get a little bit more granular on the actual program. So how does it work? So first step is granting buying power to the buyers. The buyers need to be entered into Ribbon's system. That can be done by either the lender or the real estate agent. And FHA has much more specific guidelines, and I'll talk about that here. I'll come back to that. But when a buyer is entered, Ribbon does their due diligence. I, as a lender, have to upload their pre-approval, and Ribbon does that due diligence. They'll reach out to me. They'll ask some questions to make sure that everything looks fantastic with their approval. And then as properties come about that the buyer is interested in making an offer, then those properties can be entered into Ribbon's system. Those can be entered by me as the lender or you as a real estate agent. And so three things are going to happen when a property is entered into Ribbon's system. One, Ribbon is going to come back with a Ribbon value. They're going to come back with a Ribbon max value, and they're going to come back with a Ribbon rent. And so that Ribbon value is what Ribbon thinks that the home will likely appraise for. The Ribbon max value is going to be the maximum that Ribbon will allow or will guarantee, as a cash backup offer on the property. And there's an asterisk to that, so I'll talk about that in a minute. And then Ribbon rent is going to be the amount of rent that if Ribbon has to buy the property and rent it back to the buyer until they purchase it, that's the amount of rent that they'll charge. Now, that calculation is a company secret with Ribbon. They wouldn't share that with me. But essentially what they did say is that the calculation works out to where it's being the rental rate is in line with market rent. Okay, so a couple things to understand. One is turn times. So when properties are put in, Typically, there's a 24-hour turn time to get these items back, to get the value and the max value and the rent. So it's important that if you've got clients that are looking at properties or even maybe interested in properties, throwing the property address in there and letting that come back. So that way, by the time you're ready to make an offer, you've got the information and that you can leverage. And then the second thing that we need to keep an eye on is program limitations. And so I talked about the Ribbon max value. And so that's going to be the maximum that Ribbon will guarantee. But there is an exception to that. Ribbon will allow buyers to make an offer up to 5% over the Ribbon max value. But the caveat to that is the buyer has to deposit that 5% with the title company if they win the contract. So essentially, the buyer is covering that full extra 5%. Ribbon will cover the rest if the appraisal comes in short. So there's still benefit there, but the buyer's got a little bit more skin in the game, a little bit higher cost out of pocket to cover an appraisal gap. But they will allow buyers to go a little bit over that Ribbon max value. All right, so making an offer. So this is where I, as a lender, have to step back a little bit. And as a real estate agent, you're doing the legwork here. Once you've got the Ribbon values back, you're ready to make an offer. In Ribbon system, you're going to be able to go in and you're going to enter the details of the offer. And Ribbon is going to generate a couple of documents. They're going to generate the Ribbon addendum, which is disclosing and going over the details of them as a guaranteed cash backup in the event that the buyer's not ready or able to close by the close date. Ribbon will step in, buy the home for cash on the agreed upon close date for the contract price. And they're also going to provide proof of funds. As a cash buyer, the listing agent's always going to want to see proof of funds. And so Ribbon's going to provide that proof of funds letter to be able to provide to the listing agent. Now, here's what's kind of cool. In the event that you are making an offer on a property and the listing agent's not super familiar with Ribbon or these types of programs, how they work, a Ribbon representative will even get on the phone with the listing agent to walk them through the details. Of course, I can do the same thing. I would be happy to reach out to the listing agent, talk to them about the program, make sure that they understand it, make sure that they understand the power of the offer that's in their hands, because it's truly a cash offer, because it's backed by that cash guarantee from Ribbon, and it will close as long as everything comes through clean after inspection period. And so that's the critical component for the listing agents to understand, is it truly is a cash offer. And then fees, you've heard me talk about it. It's program dependent. You know, the Ribbon Reserve program is 2% here in Texas. The Ribbon Boost program is 1% here in Texas, and then the Ribbon Rescue is 3% here in Texas. And so those are the program costs that go with it. Now, let me talk a little bit about the FHA buyers, because this is important and this is very, very critical for you as agents, me as a lender, and buyers that are using FHA programs to understand. So for FHA buyers, because we have FHA flipping rules that come into play when we're talking about Ribbon having to purchase the home. If your FHA buyer closes with their own financing with me, then they're good. Nothing to worry about there. However, if Ribbon has to purchase the home, two things have to be looked at. One, how much is the buyer putting down? If they are putting 15% or more down as an FHA buyer, which I know is not super common, but if that's the case, then they have to wait the 90 days to avoid the flipping rule. So a new contract can be done up on day 91, and then they can close. So essentially, they're going to have to lease the property from Ribbon for 90 days, and then a contract can be done and they can close before 120 days. That's if they're putting 15% or more down. So what if they're putting less than 15% down? So FHA has a requirement that when there is a tenant-landlord relationship between the buyer and the seller, there's a minimum down payment of 15%, which is why I just went over that. There's the exception to the 15% rule is if the tenant has been renting the property for at least 6 months, then they're subject to normal FHA down payment parameters, which is minimum 3.5% down. So here's what that means. If you have an FHA buyer and they're putting less than 3.5% down, they can still use this program. It is still a phenomenal program for them, and they can still come in as a cash buyer. But here's the catch. They're going to have to rent the property from Ribbon for the full 180 days for 6 months. And then Ribbon gives FHA buyers an extension of 30 days. They do a 210-day period. That way we get through that 6 months, and then we can do a contract and close within 30 days for the FHA buyer. Again, going back to what I was talking on our last slide, during that period, the home value, especially in this market, is appreciating. So even though they're renting the property, they're still gaining that appreciation, which is a huge, huge win for the FHA buyers. So FHA buyers still able to use this program. VA, USDA, we don't run into that same issue. So they have no limitations on that. So they are in a great position to use these programs as well. So, all right. So let me jump a little bit here. So let me take any questions. Let me take a look at the Facebook group here, see if anyone's got any. Oh, pardon me. Any questions? I haven't seen any questions yet. If you have any, please put them in the comments. I'm happy to go over those. Hopefully, I've just been thorough enough to where you really don't have a whole lot of questions. All right. Well, I don't have any questions at the moment. And so that really that's the Ribbon program. That is a couple different ways. You know, you talked about working with the right lending partner and then making your buyers cash buyers. That is the way that you're going to be able to set your clients apart in this market, help your clients put in significantly more competitive offers. Contingencies vanish, and buyers that are not able to maybe cover larger appraisal gaps have the ability to still cover those gaps at a smaller price, at a fraction of the cost, at 25%, 25 cents on the dollar for appraisal gaps. So huge opportunity here. If you have more questions and you want to talk about the program, or you want to start looking at getting your buyers in the program, please reach out to me. You can reach me at the contact information that you see on the screen. Comment below, give me a call, or shoot me an email. I'd be happy to have a conversation, set up a coffee, sit down and chat with you about it. But other than that, I really appreciate you joining me for this Business Building Friday. I'm your host, Sean Richard. Thanks for hanging out on SRT Live today. Have an incredible weekend, and I look forward to catching up with you next Tuesday with another market update. Thanks so much, and take care.